Hello and welcome to Treasure in Every Verse. I'm your host, author, and Bible teacher, Kevin Madison. Thank you for joining us today. All right, so folks, I had to make adjustment. Apparently, when I'm going through all the things over the last couple of weeks, Facebook Live has just been atrocious to me. I think they're trying to shadow ban me, but folks, we're going to get this thing and we're going to do it. We're going to do it right. Doesn't matter what Facebook does. We're going to continue to get out the glorious gospel of Jesus Christ. All right, so we're here. We're at Thyatira, and we're talking about the progression that goes from Thyatira, from Pergamos to Thyatira. And let me show you what I'm talking about. When you look at this right here, and I showed you this before. Let me find my chart concerning the churches, the seven churches. Where is it? Okay, so I'm going to use. Oh, here it is, right here. This one. Okay, this one right here. All right. So when you look at what's what's going on, right? And you say, here's the map where you go from Ephesus to Smyrna to Pergamos to Thyatira. Essentially, this was the mail route right here. And notice this is all modern day Turkey. Bithynia is where Peter addressed the Jews that were scattered there from Jerusalem. They fled Jerusalem and came up to here. Thrace is the same thing. This is where Paul went into the Galatian churches were inside of this whole area. Paul wrote that epistle not to one particular church. Paul wrote that epistle to Galatia, the region. So what am I saying? My point to you is there's a progression throughout the scriptures. And once you see this, folks, I got to tell you, when you're reading the book and you start seeing these major themes, if you can pick up on this stuff, it makes reading the scriptures a lot easier to understand. For example, although the seven churches, you will find individuals, like everything described in each one of these churches, seven types of people, both believers and unbelievers, okay, in each one of the churches. However, there's a progression, or should I say a digression. Things progressively gets worse in the church. Starting off with Ephesus, where it was essentially just plain, the gospel was plain and it was obvious, and people just loved God just for God. Then it just went on to persecution because of that. Then it went on because, the world decided to join the church. Then once the world joined, it got worse. Then when you come here to Sardis, it finally, the truth comes out. But because it's been dead for so long, the understanding wasn't there. Then once the understanding comes, Philadelphia comes alive. And it becomes this big evangelical thing, like the apostles, right? And then, even with all that revelation, it leads to that monstrosity at the end. Today's world, where God is your genie in the bottle. What does this look like? When you look at and compare the seven churches, it looks like this, folks. Let me show you. It looks just like what you find right here in Matthew chapter 13, where Jesus gives the seven parables. And I'm going to show you something, and I'm going to leave this alone because I don't want to get into it. I know Kevin, And if I get too deeply into it, I'm going to try to start explaining this, and I don't want to do that right now. It starts off with the church at Ephesus, the parable of the sower. It continues with this right here, the parable of the wheat and tares. The true believers of Sardis is divided from the false believers because the true believers were being killed. The false believers quickly turned. They were going to give up their lives for what they thought was a lie. Then you have the parable of the mustard seed, an abomination, something that grows. Mustard is a plant. This thing grows into a tree. Then in this tree, you have birds that come and they put nests inside of an abomination. What are the birds in the Bible? Birds in the Bible primarily represent demons, demonic activity. That's what the birds are. Then you have this. It's leaven. Leaven in the Bible is what, folks? Leaven in the Bible is sin. The kingdom of heaven is like leaven. Which a what? A woman. Now, this woman represents, remember, who is the audience Jesus is talking to? Jesus is talking to Jews. And he's talking to Jews. They all understood what he said here. You and I probably don't understand it. Why not? Because we're not Jewish. And you wasn't living back in the first century. So what do you have to do to understand this parable? You have to transport yourself back as if you were a Jew sitting in that audience at that time, listening to what Jesus was saying. Question is, were there any female priests? They were the only ones that can offer up anything to God. No. So what is Jesus saying? It's an abomination. The Jews understood that. They understood that the woman wasn't supposed to be in this parable. The fact that she was in the parable meant it was an abomination to God. How do you know that, Kevin? Because the woman is offering leaven, which represents sin. And she hid it. You don't hide the gospel. That is, you don't hide the offering. This is the bread of life. This is the unleavened bread that came down from heaven. And this woman, this abomination, is trying to insert leaven into something that's not supposed to have any leaven. And she's hiding it. And she hit 3 types. The measure here is types. This woman hit 3 types of meal until what? Until all of it became leaven. Why am I focusing on this particular one? Because this, my friend, is the church at Thyatira. Right there. That's the church at Thyatira. That's the problem right there. Why? Because it represents the woman. So when you compare this parable to the church at Thyatira, that's exactly what happens. All right.